So thank you, Chris, for joining us. We're going to go ahead and share the screen, and then you'll be able to start your presentation. All right.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to everybody. I want to congratulate Melanie's work and the Fire Safe Council's work to actually create such an effort, as we all know, or if we should know, that the Fire Safe Councils all over are set up, and they're organically set up to ensure the communities get together and not only learn what they can do, but learn what the cities and counties around them are doing to be better prepared for an emergency, especially in Anaheim Hills / Yorba Linda, right, for the wildfires that unfortunately have affected us almost every couple of years for a couple of decades now, and probably going back further. But to introduce myself further, my name is Chris Peña. I'm the emergency manager for the City of Yorba Linda, and I'm in my 5th year now. I'm a retired emergency management bureau commander, a lieutenant from the Anaheim Police Department. 30 years in law enforcement there, and went through the Freeway Complex fire, helped evacuate the city of Anaheim, Anaheim Hills, helped create the Know Your Way program, which I brought over to the Yorba Linda city, and incorporating that now in terms of designated evacuation zones for the city, and helping organize each evacuation zone, the members through communication and education and preparedness advice. So I work, again, like I said, for the city of Yorba Linda now, but my role remains very, very similar to my last post with the Anaheim Police Department. Was again the Emergency Management Bureau Commander, dealing with all sorts of emergencies, but very familiar with the fire season in Orange County. I'm a resident of Orange County. I live in Tribunal Canyon, and unfortunately, a very high fire severity zone myself, and the unincorporated area of Orange County. So now, personally and professionally, very concerned about wildfires, evacuations, notifications, alert and warning, and those issues. And now it's my position there for the city of Yorba Linda. I've got a master's degree in emergency management and disaster management, and I sit on the board of the Orange County Emergency Management Organization, and I'm part of the California Emergency Services Association, along with the International Association of Emergency Managers. So very passionate about preparedness, instructor for disaster preparedness courses called CERT, which we'll talk about in my slide presentation, and used to be the chief radio officer for the volunteer ham radio group in Anaheim that helped with our communications. So a lot of background, and first and foremost, I want to say, in terms of my position in Yorba Linda now, I'm always available to be contacted. Don't need to wait for a presentation to a group, but my number is listed. Obviously, you can always call me with any questions about preparedness, disaster related, or where we are with resources in terms of city resources and how I can help. Every year in the fall, before the winds start, I put together a community wildfire preparedness symposium. I get all of our stakeholders involved, and they all show up and enjoy doing it. And as you know, the city of Yorba Linda is a contract city, right? So we don't have our own police department, nor do we have our own fire department, but we rather contract those out to two rather very, very large and respected organizations, Orange County Fire Authority and the Orange County Sheriff's Department. For our Orange County Sheriff's Department, for our alert and warning and our evacuations, and the fire department obviously come and fight the fires with amazing resources they have. And every year it seems that we get through technology and grant funding, we get more and more resources available to us by contracting with the Orange County Fire Authority. So that being said, if you want to advance the slide, we'll walk through this, and please, if you have any questions, let me know. And Melanie asked me to make sure that we provide a glimpse into the resources with the city specifically of Yorba Linda. And I want to walk you through that now. So over the last couple of months, I made sure the access to our resources was easier to find on the website. So this is the, on your screen there, is on the face page of Yorba Linda, City of Yorba Linda's website. And we're a permanent city spotlight now called Emergency Preparedness there in the lower center block. And it shows some community emergency response team photos. But if you access yorbalinda.gov, and you'll see us there in emergency management disaster preparedness. So you click on that. We'll forward the slide again. And it takes you right to the emergency management section, which has several pages, probably more than most of our city departments, I'm proud to say. But it walks you through, right, our evacuation plan overview, because most residents I found in Yorba Linda are very concerned. A lot of them lived through the freeway complex fire of 2008. And I was there in Anaheim on a Saturday morning at the Emergency Operations Center in my police position when that fire broke out. And we activated, obviously, and had a rough time evacuating the citizens of Anaheim Hills because it happened so fast. Then Future Me, 2017, I believe it was, for the Canyon 1, then the Canyon 2 fires. And at that time, I was appointed to be on the incident management team with the Orange County Fire Authority as a law enforcement liaison officer to help guide those 2 fires, Canyon 1 and Canyon 2. And the good news, based on the quick history lesson I just gave, is that because we know when the Santa Ana winds occur, right, October through March, arguably, and we know which way the wind blows, and we know where the wind comes from, we've designated our fire season around the Santa Ana winds. Summertime, it heats up, our vegetation dries out, and then it's ripe for a fire, but not till the wind's starting, it becomes a very hazardous and dangerous situation. So that's what I want to talk about tonight is familiarize you folks with the resources we have on the City of Yorba Linda's webpage, then invite you to come to our annual wildfire community preparedness event. And then if you're further want to know how to be better prepared as a resident up in the hills, whether you're in Carbon Canyon or Belinda and Hills, come to our community emergency response team training, which I put on twice a year. And it goes through about 24 hours over the course of like 5 or 6 evenings to go through building an emergency kit, planning for family evacuation, considering pets and large animals, and being familiar with the timeline of how an emergency develops, but specifically up in Yorba Linda, and mostly the same for like Anaheim Hills and Chino, those areas there, which we all enjoy and living, but we all realize that we all live in a high fire severity zone. So we can advance the slide, because I want to specifically talk about, I've added a section last year, and I call it the frequently asked questions in terms of evacuation. And I start out with 3 big sections: the role of the city, because we're a contract city without our own police and fire, and a very small public works operation, right? But specifically the role of the Orange County Fire Authority when a fire erupts. And we're using fire only as the hazard du jour, so to speak, because that's on the first and foremost on people's minds, especially the residents who've lived through the freeway complex fire back about 17 or 18 years ago now, right? And that's always the benchmark to what happened then versus what happens and is happening now in terms of advancements, improvements, training, technology, coordination, mutual aid, and I go on and on, especially when we have our September-October symposium. But specifically, you'll see what exactly in terms of timeline the police department's doing in terms of evacuation, alert and warning. Then I go into the fire department, what their role is and what they'll be doing, what they can expect to be doing. For example, meeting up in unified command with the sheriff's department and the city to make sure that our residents are not only informed, but they have clear direction to activate their emergency plans and what resources we have for them when they unfortunately are in the path of a wildfire. And then thirdly, again, Orange County Fire, Orange County Sheriff, and the city's roles are specifically spelled out there. And that usually are the questions about what my role is, what the city's role is during an emergency, especially since we're a contract city, and then what our contractor, public safety partners, I like to refer to them as, are doing and what their role is. And then the one that's specifically I want to mention tonight is the role of the resident, right? How prepared are we living in these high fire severity zones in terms of knowledge, education, and preparedness tasks, which we'll get to in just a few seconds. So we can advance the slide, Melanie. Appreciate it. So Know Your Way was built out of Anaheim Hills Freeway Complex fire, post fire. And then I brought that to Yorba Linda when I retired from the police department in Anaheim in 2019 and helped set up this program for Yorba Linda. What you're seeing there is available on the website, City of Yorba Linda's website, and that is a geographical map of Yorba Linda. Every space in the city is spoken for in terms of the evacuation zones. We're the first city. The Orange County Sheriff came up and created these zones prior to my being there. And I was often wondered when I first started, what was the meaning of these shapes and numbers and why they were set up that way. And it was actually pretty scientific. They did a really good job. As you know, Orange County Sheriff Department, because they're our contract partner for public safety, they bring I call it the big green machine. They bring a lot of resources to bear. So they can literally lock the jail down and fill 6 buses worth of deputies and head them out within, very short amount of time up into other positions around the county that they're contracted with to help support public safety and especially evacuations. And so what they did was took a couple of squads, I think 24 deputies, and they determined these evacuation zones in Yorba Linda, but how long it took in I'm sorry, how long, but in 45 minutes, how much land could they cover in terms of door-to-door knocking with 24 deputies, obviously with vehicle support. But that's how they came up and determined the size and shape of these evacuation zones. So when I learned that, I didn't want to touch it because it was scientifically based, and their recommendation of how reasonably you can get up to these areas in terms of vehicle traffic and space, and just the geographical layout of some communities only have a couple of exits, or only a couple of our unfortunate evacuations only have one exit out of their neighborhoods. So that being said, I added a layer and gave these numbers names, and that's for public information over the radio, AM radio type of thing, news alerts, press alerts, public information that would go out to the residents. So in our website, you'll learn not only the number of the zone you live in, but the name of it. And it's all geographic, basically the highlight of those areas. So we have, in the next slide, you'll see some names of these. But part of the responsibilities in building your evacuation plan is to know the zone you live in, and not only know the main entrance and exit of your neighborhood, but know an alternative in case for some reason the fire is spotted, moved ahead, and the normal way in and out of your neighborhood is blocked or somewhat unavailable. And so part of Know Your Way, as it says, is to have an evacuation plan. So when you do get the alert and warning, you know what that means, and we'll talk about that, the difference between evacuation warning versus an evacuation order from the sheriff's department, who issues those, and then have a pretty good idea based on a couple of resources I'll give you what it means to you at the time. And then that means, in terms of evacuation readiness, you'll already have talked about with your family, hopefully, and documented what you're going to grab if we only have an hour to leave, or 30 minutes, or 5 minutes, right? Prioritize the things. And the things that we're talking about are very simple when we get to, and we do more of this in our first night with the community emergency response team training, right? Is have a go bag, a ready kit, and a communications plan with your family. Oftentimes we hear that a lot of family members sometimes are out of the area and they're trying to race back home to help evacuate. By the time they get up there, which happened in Freeway Complex, they can't get up the road because we have fire and police blocking the way. They're trying to get up there to fight the fire. But to have this preset and pre-discussion with you and your family, and prioritize your important paperwork, your medications, change of clothes, your contact list for out-of-town folks, have making sure you've prepared for your relatives, any individuals that need assistance or extra assistance in your family, and your pets and animals. We have a large equestrian population in Yorba Linda, so I'm really passionate about that as a horse owner. And I've been dealing with the county's emergency management group and animal care from Orange County, which we also contract with, to make sure that's always talked about and included in all these plans, preparations, and education that we give out. And we have a plan for where we're going to take our pets and animals any extra conveniences we need, or necessities, I should say, that we need, right, for our elderly to our infants and everything in between. And doing so in a moment's notice by realizing what it means when you have that warning or order that you have to leave your place, right? So this first map is just a general map of the zones. If we go to the next slide.
If I can interrupt just for a moment, it looks
Please.
like Claire has a question.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I do. It's as much a question as a comment. As I had mentioned, I live in Carbon Canyon. I've been here 45 years and faced many fires. The sheriffs don't really go around door to door. There's just no time. They go up and down the street with, a huge loudspeaker yelling at everybody to leave now, basically. And that usually comes a little too late, that you should have already left. So just my experience is you see smoke, you should just leave. Don't wait for somebody to tell you to leave. And that's kind of what happened in the Palisades. They just waited to leave or couldn't get to their house in time because the streets were already clogged. So
that's well said and very factual. What she's talking about is how do we get public safety folks up to then advise personally the alert and warning. In Orange County, specifically Anaheim Hills, Yorba Linda now, there's several new technology resources available, and I'll mention a couple of those now because I think I talk about them on my slide presentation. And I certainly talked to them at length at our annual symposium in September, October. That being one is you'll see deputies up with a high-low siren. Anybody know what a high-low siren sounds like?
Nope.
That is the European tone. And I'm going to embarrass myself, Melanie, if you don't mind. But I have a video on it that I show every year, but it goes, it's a European high-low siren. Those are always, and I was a police officer 30 years, that was always a one of the options in our sirens, in our siren box in the patrol cars, but no one ever used it. Only time you ever heard it was when the ambulance drivers would play it with all the different sirens, like I think it's 4 or 5 options, right? But that was never used. Well, they're designating that now and getting the public safety message out. Then you hear that particular high-low siren, which doesn't sound like a normal police siren. That is an evacuation notice. That is also recorded in the helicopter public address systems, and both Anaheim and Orange County Sheriff both have, and now Orange County Fire Authority have a vibrant stash of helicopters now. Not only will they be sounding that high-low siren in the air on motorcycles, police cars, based on the time. And when I said go to your door to door, that was an ideal situation when there was time. In 45 minutes, how many houses could they get to? Whether that'll happen, it depends how close the wildfire is, right? But as you move forward, technology-wise, there's a specific slide that I have, I'll speak to in a minute, that how you can get a free application on your phone called Watch Duty that will give you just as much intelligence as the fire department gets, where in terms of where exactly the fire is, the wind speed and direction, even modeling now with AI of how long it'll get to where we live. And so it's when I first started 5 years ago in my position as an emergency manager, I had to wait for the phone call for the battalion chief. And I wasn't satisfied with that because remember, my emergency management spot, I'm just one guy for the city that worries about this. But my previous position in Anaheim Police, I was a bureau commander for the whole emergency management division, which was in addition to the fire department's emergency manager. And we had radios and personnel and technology and computer. Well, I didn't have any of that in Yorba Linda. So that was then. This is now. I have all of that. We have in Yorba Linda our emergency operations center, which is a small little room because we don't need to be a big one because we don't provide all of the response requirements that big cities have. But for example, I have the fire department's all the fire department frequencies in their radio. I have all the police department frequencies in their radio. I have 2 alerting systems. Pulse Point is one. It's a free application. You too can listen to all the fire call outs for whatever you sign up for, whatever division you're in. And there's another app called, well, actually not an app, but you can buy a very inexpensive radio. In fact, I really amazed how radio technology has come down these days. For $25, you can buy a very nice radio and listen to the vegetation fire call ups. Anytime there's a vegetation fire, anything anywhere in Orange County. I mean, I have one plugged into my house and it sits on the charger, always on in that frequency. It's always on in my office and it's always on in my car. So any vegetation fire that blows up in Orange County, all the responding fire departments, including the state, federal, and local, which means, for here it'd be Cal Fire, Orange County Fire, and U.S. Forest Service here in our local Saddleback Mountain, they all jump on the same frequency to respond. So that's if you have that radio on, there's something. There's a vegetation fire in Orange County they're responding to. Then you couple that. I have a slide for this coming up with your Watch Duty app. And it's literally minutes to see where exactly the fire is, where it's coming from, who's going. You can actually it's all free app, hit a button and listen to the responding units. And you can then go to another application and for free and widely available is to see the fire on these wildfire cameras that are placed all around the hills of Orange County, specifically on the 91 corridor. And so all of that technology is in my emergency operation plan. And I stare at it in my desk. I have a third screen on my desk that has all these screens that talk about, all that's going on. I have radios, alerting apps, cameras that I know exactly in terms of intelligence, what's going on. So all this is available to you folks as residents now that never was before in the past. So we have a lot of solutions for these things. I'm happy to continue talking about these things. Let's go ahead and advance the slide. So these are the zones in Yorba Linda. They all have names and zone numbers. So if you listen to KNX News or KFI News, and they say there's a wildfire in Yorba Linda, they'll through the Public Information Office, which City of Yorba Linda Public Information, Orange County Fire, Orange County Sheriff, all will be using the same language. Part of Know Your Way is know what evacuation zone you're in. For example, Zone 22, Fairmont Hills or Fairmont Knolls, you'll hear that. East Lake, Zone 21, and you'll say both those numbers, the numbers for responding public safety and the names for the residents to remember where they live, right? We're going to be doing a grant project. If I get the money, we'll be putting these stickers on the back of stop signs in each neighborhood. So every time you drive in and out of your neighborhood and you see the stop sign, you'll have a little sticker saying what your evacuation. So always a reminder when you hear the city, the county, or obviously AM or FM radio talking about a wildfire, you'll know that means you. Moving forward in the slide, please, Melanie. This is what it looks like when you hit one of those pages. For example, I've got a couple of zones here. I've got Hidden Hills and Rimcrest up there. And the indications based on gold stars are the ways out of your neighborhood. Oftentimes there's more than one, but as human nature goes, we only usually take the same way in and out of our neighborhoods. But I encourage you, as part of your evacuation plan, is to seek out other options and other streets, if you never maybe even been down, to see where they end up. And this, with a larger map of Yorba Linda, which is on the website, will indicate the exits from your neighborhood in case one's blocked. It might not be for a wildfire, right? It might be a chemical release or something. So we always encourage you to have more than one way out. But the example on the left there, and in zone 8, which is Hidden Hills, they only have one way out. So the alert and warning is super precious there, right? Timeliness. So having the plan, realizing your resources that I'll help you with, and having an alert and warning system through available applications and alerts that are just hooked to your phone. We all carry phones now, little computers that will give us this extra time to not only leave, prepare to leave, or actually head back up and make sure that the family has a plan if you're not there. And that's part of family planning, right? We talk about this in our CERT class, is if you're not there, the parents aren't there, what do the kids do? And that extends to our neighbors as well. I have a handicapped person live next to me, and she's a fantastic mentor to me, very, very wise person. And one of the things that my checklist says is to make sure the neighbor's okay. And does she have access, right, to leave if we all need to leave? I've got my horse trailers hooked up when there's a red flag warning. And I know I've got a 2-horse trailer. I'm taking my horse and the lucky horse next to her in the stall gets a ride in my trailer down the hill after I've making sure my place is good and my neighbor is good. So that's part of planning. The Know Your Way just symbolizes look at this ahead of time before fire season, discuss it with your friends, family, and neighbors, which I think the Fire Safe Council is now gathering, doing a great effort to gather at these groups. I'd love to have, I mentioned to Melanie earlier, a Fire Safe Council in all of these evacuation zones where we all talk about this, several times a year just to make sure we're all prepared, right? So that's the intent. Moving on in the slides, Melanie. So this is the base map of all of Yorba Linda. So you see the exit route. These are the main corridors, and our research that we did through a consultant mapped all of these corridors in terms of time to get through the main arteries to get down and out. And I say down and out because generally speaking, the top right of this page is where the Santa Ana winds come from, which is Chino Hill State Park, right 91 corridor. And generally speaking, mostly, and it says down here in fine print, generally blows to a southwest direction. So we want to leave downhill and downwind. We don't want to drive uphill or up into the fire, suggesting that's normally where the fire is going to be coming from based on traditional models, right? Freeway Complex, Canyon 1 and 2, and Blue Ridge Fire in 2020. And so know the major arteries. So your plan to leave your neighborhood through the exit we discussed and get to a major corridor, a thoroughfare, an artery, they call it, and then downhill, downwind. And this is one of the frequently asked questions. It's a good time to bring it up. There was some reluctance and some pushback when I rolled this program out that I wasn't able to say or make recommendations of where you should go. When you're ordered to leave, well, where should we go? I said, well, I can't tell you where to go, but down, south and east, south and west, down through these corridors to get to a safe place. Now, generally speaking, we haven't had a fire in Southern California in a long, long time that compared to the Palisades, unfortunately, fire, where it burned in the Malibu fire, right? It burned to the ocean and everything in its path was devastated. Very much an anomaly where the whole city would burn because there's a lot of houses, a lot of infrastructure between, say, the wildlands to our north and east down to the 91 freeway. So anywhere out of fire danger, I jokingly say that if I lived off of Kellogg or up in Hidden Hills, I would just get down to the local, down to the local large parking lot where there's a Starbucks and be first in line. I'm not saying you have to leave the city, not to say that couldn't happen because we saw that just recently, unfortunately, at the Palisades Malibu, where the whole city was taken out. But it's a very rare anomaly. And you'll see, like anything else, people say, well, until something happens, nothing's going to be done. Well, something just did happen. And we've all seen the news, all the effort, time, energy based on how to make sure this doesn't happen again. I'm never going to condone an emergency for a chance to improve, but this time it just did happen. So believe me, the Orange County Fire Authority and all the fire departments in California are looking at these after action reports and to make sure it's not going to happen in their city. You wouldn't believe how much funding now is going into reinvigorating some of these gaps, if that's a term, to make sure they learn from this unfortunately recent event. So the thoroughfares, and it talks about the major streets, the smaller roads, and this is for, generally speaking, a Santa Ana windblown wildfire that you should be aiming towards to get out of your neighborhood. And then find a spot just outside of the neighborhood, down the hill to a safe area in Yorba Linda that's not going to be affected. I'm not saying you have to have an evacuation plan that leaves the city or even the county, but just to get down and out of the local neighborhood is my recommendation. So moving on.
It looks like, let's see, Blythe. That was her name. It wasn't Mike. Mike, she has her hand.
It is.
Question?
Blythe and Mike.
Question?
Crystal, quick question. Do we know compared to when, because we were here for that fire in 08?
Which fire? 08.
The one in 08. Yeah, we drove past it, thought it was a little brush fire, went on to San Diego, and then came back and our son was spraying down our neighbor's house.
Yeah.
And, but Do you happen to know currently, because of what happened to that time frame, what the status is of our fire hydrants,
I
the
do.
pumps, the reservoir levels?
I do. And we go through that. Remember, my public safety partners all join me, including the Yorba Linda Water District, the fire service, Edison is all there to explain the improvements, technology, education, training, drills, but specifically for the fire hydrants, backup generator pumps, new pump stations specifically have been installed. I went to just about 6 months ago a grand opening of one of the pump stations that have been reinvigorated by Yorba Linda Water District, all backed up by generators now for power. And we've installed two and going under our third, what we call hella hydrants. Have anybody heard about our hella hydrants up there in the hills?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, very interesting. And I encourage you to go to the Yorba Linda, because we're very proud of this. And so are we. Yorba Linda Water District's website, a lot of good videos. So these are huge tanks. I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong in terms of gallons, but about 5,000 gallons of water in big holding tanks that are activated to fill by the fire department helicopters. And standing policy suggests the Yorba Linda Water District fills these things on red flag days or red flag weekends. They pre-fill them, but it just radio frequency, they can click a microphone and start filling this. And there's two now going into our third up along the same map we're looking at now, up along the ridges of Yorba Linda, and they will fill up with like correct me if I'm wrong, but 5,000 gallons of water. And we have all of our water dropping helicopters local, includes two from the Orange County Sheriff's Department, one from the Anaheim Police Department, and two new brand new Firehawk helicopters from the Orange County Fire Authority, and a combined effort from Cal OES and Edison, who has the big helicopter, all local. Nothing has to be brought in from even out of county, that can dip in, land at these sites within a minute, unfurl their hose, get back in the helicopter and hover and suck the water out and pour it all in the fire and make repeated trips. These are all gravity fed through the Deemer plant, thanks to Metropolitan Water District that keeps the water flowing and has abundance of now 3 different places they can get water, at the top of Yorba Linda and the south part of Chino Hills. Before that, in 2008, they had to fly across the freeway up into the reservoir in Anaheim Hills to get water, and that was a 7 or 8 minute flight each way. 8 minutes across Anaheim Hills, suck the water, and 8 minutes back, so that's 16 minutes. Now, within 3 minutes, they can be sucking water, dropping it in a 3 minute flight back to get more water. And with the huge increase of aviation assets, more helicopters, including law enforcement helicopters, that can suck the water out and drop it right away on the fires. That's supported by Yorba Linda Water District, right, who has now emergency backup generators to ensure that the pumps will always be working, and there's always going to be water flow and availability for all the hydrants up in the hills. So it's a combined effort, and I'm happy to say that on the website, I wrote like a 7 or 8 page white paper on one of the most frequently asked questions, which we just heard, right? What's now compared to what was then in 2008 for the Freeway Complex? What has changed? And so I wrote a huge paper. It's on the website, on the city's website, about all of the very, very, what's the word I want to use? Encouraging differences and changes that have been made since then. And I encourage you to read that. And I want to say it's called Since the Freeway Complex Fire, What's Changed? As I think the running title for that document. You can find it on the website, on our City of Emergency Preparedness website. So good question. And I encourage a phone call back if that's not a thorough answer to, and you'll be impressed, because I know impressively describing this to my peers in other cities, they're impressed with the amount of time, effort, energy, resources that we have available here in Orange County.
Chris,
Can I I was just going to add on to that. Claire, I think, dropped in the chat that Chino Hills and Brea have also added hydrants. And so there are other ones that are accessible. And she did also point out that even flights with helicopters or FOSCHEC drops are completely dependent on the fierceness of the winds. And so it's great to have added systems, but sometimes, as we saw in the Palisades fire, we couldn't even get aerial support because the wind was so horrendous. The other thing I was going to mention, in case folks are wondering, we do have the Yorba Linda Water Districts lined up to speak at one of our events, but because I'm sharing my screen, I don't want to try to look it up in the background. So I'll find that out in the middle of the meeting later on.
Yeah, Mark Toy up there, the general manager, is a fantastic partner of ours. Super encouraged to partner with us and for the benefit of the residents up in the hills for the same specific reason, right? And the end goal is to make sure we don't have a 2008 again. So fantastic. Moving on, slide-wise. So this is what you'll see on our website. That's the same thing you'll see on Orange County Sheriff's website. When you first go to our website, if there's an active fire, you'll see this real time map that's through our GIS folks, in-house Yorba Linda GIS folks, that will start, and this is a reference for you guys. If you hear of a fire in Yorba Linda, you can go to our website and this will initially pop up and you'll see all the emergency evacuation zones by name and number, and they'll be color coded to what's red in this example is a mandatory fire evacuation order. The orange would be an evacuation warning, right, for your neighborhood, evacuation neighborhood, or yellow, which is a shelter in place. And so the top right corner just shows the main page of our website. If we transition, activate our emergency operation plan, there's an active fire. You can always reference this on your phone to see what neighborhoods are under the warnings, either evacuation warnings or orders. So another resource we didn't have in 2008. So beef can pump through your evacuation planning with your family, be aware of this resource, and the sheriff's department is going to have the same information up. I think we have 3 recommended social media recommendations because they're always official. We know the difference between official and non-official, and I'll go through that really quick because it's important to say, is the City of Yorba Linda, the Orange County Fire Department, Orange County Sheriff's Department's official public information websites, when there's an emergency, are the most accurate. And when I say accurate, that means if we're not going to give you information that's not been vetted. You do have the Yorba Linda Buzz and Facebook that might be more timely, but that information is given by unrealized sources. We all love to think, and I do think that everyone's got the great intentions in mind. But when a website posts, during a fire says, my tree's on fire, I'm in this neighborhood, are they below, are they downwind? Are they upwind? Is that part of the larger fire? Was it a windblown ember? So what do you make with that information? So the delay complaints that we get with following the public or official, I should say, sources for information are only because we really make sure it's verified information that we put out. And so so a combination of both maybe. I know in where I live in Trujillo Canyon, right? If my neighbor is saying the fire is spotting up the road, but yet the Orange County Sheriff's hasn't put it out yet, my eyes and ears, of my lion eyes, I'll know. I can smell it. I see it. I'm not going to wait. It was mentioned earlier. We shouldn't wait. All this technology and information sources are great, but ultimately be on the safe side. Have already a plan and just say, hey, you know what? We're not going to wait. This could be a big thing. Let's activate our emergency plan. Let's grab the 6 or 8 things, the cat, right? Make a few phone calls and split down the hill. We're all going to meet at Costco. Just activate the plan. Better safe than sorry. So that's what this slide talks about. Is there a question there that just popped up?
Yeah, do you want me to read it for you?
Sure.
It says, have you seen the UCSD video about Alert California, which speaks to AI and camera units that can view a fire even before reported or can view a reported fire? The video makes reference to that sometimes to get a crew up into the hills to try to check on a reported fire can take 30 to 90 minutes to get to that area, and the cameras allow for sight of issue before crews can.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier it's UC San Diego that started this, now partnered with Southern California Edison and even large fire departments. I was my Orange County Emergency Management Organization meeting today, in fact, this morning, and the City of Orange just added 2 new cameras to that system. These are publicly available, called Alert California wildfire cameras, and they even bring in volunteers. And volunteers started watching these cameras to make sure they can see smoke plumes. But now they're just adding, in the next year or so, AI to it, where AI will be able to spot a smoke plume and alert the local fire department of any suspected initial ignition, they call it, of a wildfire. So on my third screen in my office, I had two screens below my in front of me, and then the third screen above me. It's really big. I've got that in quarters, and one of those screens is all the cameras that are the Chino Hills, Brea, Carbon Canyon, Yorba Linda Hills. So I'm staring at those cameras all day. And then thanks to AI now, it'll alert all local fire departments if it seems to spot. We've had 3 or 4 of those last year. It was up at the old Orange County dump site up at Santiago Canyon, up at Loma Ridge. You guys are familiar with that. Jamboree and Chapman up into as you're heading into Silverado past Irvine Lake. There's an old dump up there. And when it gets hot and there's moisture, we get the sometimes little festering little fires to start, natural combustion of the soil compacted with trash and all that. Long story short, and AI's detected those right away, so we know it works, and it's a fantastic resource. And we discuss all of that in our symposium in September, October, when we have our community wildfire event. So stay tuned for that. But another good example of how technology, now even AI, right, is helping us with alert and warning. And all we're looking forward to in terms of alert and warning, and my specific interest is time for me to know about it, time to activate the alert and warning system so you all know about it. And time equals success in terms of evacuation. Your loved ones, those with access and functional needs, large animals, pets, that type of thing. So it all works in harmony to give us more time when and if there's a fire. So good question. And yes, I'm very well aware of those, and we're using it now. And we discuss this all in Orange County. Every month we meet with other emergency managers, and we have these long, interesting, to me at least, passionate conversations about any new tools, technology, or procedures that might help. So I'm glad for this opportunity and more to get this information out to you folks, which is great. So thanks, Melanie, again for having me and to share this information. So let's continue with the slideshow.
Yep. Oops. Thanks.
So this is the application I was hugely encouraging. Even the fire department say this is amazing. This is called Watch Duty. It's free. I pay the extra $20 a year to get there's more things it does. For example, I'm watching one of my screens above my desk every day, and it's on my phone. You hear any helicopter go over your house. You just click on your app, open it up, and if you pay the extra $20, you can see every single firefighting aviation resource. So every fire plane or helicopter in the state and beyond, southwestern United States, increasing past southwestern into all of the states. And you can zoom in your area, and that if you hear a helicopter and think it's a fire helicopter, it'll show you up on your map that's actually, you'll see a little icon of a helicopter. The rotators are going. It shows you its flight path. Click on the helicopter, it shows you who it is, where it's from, what the call sign is. And if you see it's circling somewhere, you can zoom in to see where the fire is. You can look at your cameras and see if there's a camera nearby. Click the camera and you're watching the fire live. And now it's all connected to Watch Duty. And it's, again, a free app for the basic and $20 a year for the advancements to watch the helicopters and planes that I do. And it'll start now incorporating all the evacuation zones. It'll start shading in those mandatory and evacuation warnings and mandatory orders on this one app. It's invaluable for anyone living like we all do, right, in a high fire severity zone. I can't recommend it enough. Highly recommended by all of the fire folks. In fact, our former division chief for Orange County Fire just retired, and he went to work for Watch Duty. It's all, it happens so fast. So it's that, if you have a $25 radio with that one frequency I talked about called Fire OC, and this app, and maybe a pulse point, which is the third app that will alert you. Orange County Fire will alert you if there's a vegetation fire in your area. You're golden. And so much better off in terms of this knowledge than we ever had before. Even going back 3 or 4 years, it's come a long way. So I can't recommend that enough. If you want more information, I can certainly help you if you want to get a hold of me after the meeting. Moving on, Melanie. So I want to push and solicit members. I do a community emergency response team, depending on interest, once or twice a year, always in the fall. If I had enough people, 12 to 15 people in the spring, we'll do it again. I bring in our public safety folks, fire department, our local ambulance company now, The fire department does fire safety, goes over the rules and regs, and support for what they do. They actually will teach you how to work a fire extinguisher. After I've already helped you do a family emergency plan, a communication plan, then I bring in the ambulance folks to do a first aid course. And then I bring in Edison, either Edison or SoCal Gas, talk about utility shutoff. And then we do the sheriff's department comes in, does an active shooter, run, hide, fight in partnership with the Stop the Bleed training for the first aid segment of that. We do some light search and rescue with the fire department in case there's an earthquake, what we can do, how we can be helpful there. We talk about disaster psychology, the emotional right support of those folks going through disasters, and a little bit about terrorism and what's going on there, because we're an all hazards program. And generally I do that on Tuesday and Thursday nights for, I think, 5 or 6 nights in a row, or, which is over 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And we come together for 3 hours and we have all this information, and I do it personally and present this with guest speakers. And at the end of this program, you'll get a certificate, nationally recognized certificate, and you have built a go kit. You will have in your hand a family evacuation plan, and you will have got hands-on skills with fire extinguisher, light search and rescue, building a go kit, and that type of thing. So I have it on the website and social media. I've got the interest list. If anyone wants to participate, just sign up, and the next class will be on the mailing list for. And there's a question.
Yeah, Claire was just noting that there's a surf. So I've moved to the ocean. My apologies. That might be more fun for people. CERT class that starts in Brea on February 24th. Is Yorba Linda doing a joint class with Brea at this point, or are yours separate?
That's a great question. I spoke with Lisa Keyworth this morning at our meeting. She's the Brea emergency manager. Now, I will say, when I first started here 5 years ago, they said, hey, make sure you hook up with the Brea for their CERT program. Make sure you meet with the large animal folks, the equestrians, Yorba Linda, and all that. So I've done all that. But between you and me, there's no participative program crossover between Yorba Linda and Brea. And if you want more information, you can ask me on the side. But most cities do their own. There's only collaborative groups I know of. It's like West cities, which is like, I want to say, like La Palma, Seal Beach, and there's one other city, West, they call it West County conglomeration. And then again, they do it again in South Orange County, but Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano, and San Clemente, I think, does a collaborative meeting. When I first started this program 5 years ago, or continued it, I said, from my predecessor, I partnered with Tustin and Placentia, and it worked out pretty well. But there's always politics involved, right? So we try to do one just in Yorba Linda, but it's the same curriculum, same national certification. So if you've had CERT training in Brea, it's the same program in Yorba Linda, Orange, Costa Mesa, and on and on. So I would take one anywhere you can get it that meets your timeline. But I'd stick in Orange County, because the first night we always talk about what's local to Orange County in terms of hazards. So that's my recommendation.
Great.
Moving on. Questions and answers. Fantastic. I know I've gone over my time, but this is just, and I'll say this is just to get your interest elevated, right? And know that I'm a resource. Know we have a lot of programs. I'm always available for questions. Melanie will have my email, and I'm around all week in my little workstation cube. I wish I had a big office, but I don't. But I'm always available because I'm passionate about preparedness. I was on a search and rescue team for 13 years back in the day, Orange County Search and Rescue. And again, law enforcement, ran some volunteer courses. I'm a ham radio operator. I was an EMT for a search and rescue team for many years. And so I'm all about preparedness. So anything I can help you guys with, feel free. And if you're in Anaheim Hills or Chino, no big deal. Give me a call. I invite you guys to sign for CERT as well.
Great. So the first hand that I saw up, and then we'll head over to the questions in the chat. But Blythe?
Yeah, the question, Chris, is for those homes that are up along Rimcrest. And we actually have a vested interest that our son and his wife have a home up there. And they, on their cul-de-sac, they butt right up. Their house does it, but they're just 2 houses away from butting up to the Chino Hills Preserve. Is there any plans, or does the, I don't know if that's county or the state, to do any type of brush abatement up to those, behind those homes up there?
Yeah, we were speaking before the meeting started tonight about that topic. We live in those folks that live up in the top, the northern part of our city, have basically three areas, right? They have private property that leads up to unincorporated Orange County, city property, and even state property, which is the park. So it really depends who owns the land, and there's representatives from each of those. The city does code enforcement and works with our fire authority folks to do weed abatement. We're the ones that bring up the goats and eat, who eat the grass. They do our landscape maintenance district, LMAD, they call it, landscape maintenance assessment district. We have a full-time guy in Yorba Linda. His name is Jesse Gutierrez. Been there for over 10 years, and he knows all about wherever you're suggesting. A quick email to me to get to him, or just to him directly, would tell you. It depends whose land is the answer, and then what the mitigation efforts are currently. I mentioned earlier, before the meeting started, that City of Chino Hills is working now, along with the cooperation of us and support, I should say, not cooperation, but support of Yorba Linda and Brea, to make sure that Chino Hills is doing their part to maintain their responsibility for what we call fuel modification, or even just wildfire mitigation. But we talked a little bit earlier, some of the challenges there are always environmental, native grasslands versus non-native species, and how best with budgets as they are to get rid of some of those grasslands. And depends who owns the land, like I said. The fire department would like to bulldoze and put fire retardant along that whole area before fire season, but they can't. It's not realistic, right? But there's always going to be a discussion, which I'm glad to hear that they're discussing that. But in terms of specific fuel modification, that's an Orange County Fire thing with those folks assigned to Yorba Linda and our landscape maintenance assessment district folks that deal with that angle. I generally don't, but all the resources are there. If you want more information, I can always get you the right people.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And I was going to say, we might have a little bit more context that we can provide to Rimcrest especially. And I saw Claire's hand go up, so my guess is there's a good response coming in on that.
Well, actually, I was going to say that the state park has an approved fire management plan that was approved by all of the surrounding jurisdictions: Chino Hills, Brea, Yorba Linda, CAL FIRE, and Orange County Fire Authority. And so that has been in place for 3 years now. And so it's recent and updated. But
do you mind if I add to that, Claire?
Yep, sure.
It's currently, as we speak, being relooked into to ensure that their responsibilities are being taken seriously by request of the city of Chino Hills. So that's good news for other residents. It's in place. That's great. 3 years, but is it still there? Are they still holding to their responsibilities? Are they still doing what they need to do, what they can do, what they want to do to make sure? So that effort's being spearheaded by Chino Hills, the city government. And I know we're aware of it, and Brea is aware of it, and we support. There was a supportive letter signing that just went out about, I want to say, 3 or 4 months ago, and it's coming to fruition, is my understanding. So it's good news.
Yeah, I would just point out that actually Brea did not sign on to the letter.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I asked Lisa Keyworth about that this morning, the emergency manager for Brea, and she said the same thing. She said that she wasn't aware. It didn't come through her. It probably went through their fire prevention folks in Brea, because they have their own fire department. So I assumed that was, I don't know why you wouldn't, but I know we have. And a letter of support for the efforts Chino Hills is making to make sure that the state, in terms of the park, is doing all they can.
Yeah, one thing I'll add to the discussion is that the state park was present before the houses in Yorba Linda on that edge. And normally what happens in a situation like that, and what the state park has been implementing, and I'm not trying to speak for the state park, but my understanding of the situation is that the residents that border the state park are responsible for the fuel modification. And so they're allowed to apply for a permit.
That's correct.
Through Chino Hills State Park to actually complete the fuel modification. But decisions were made long ago about the developments and the location and the lack of a buffer between the developments and the state park. And so if in order for the state park to absorb that fuel modification, the residents are responsible for it because the park was there first. So it's complicated. It's not as
Yeah,
straightforward as
I
one would
agree.
think.
I agree. We have a whole full-time crew, led by a superintendent, I believe is his title, Jesse Gutierrez in the city, who has all that information. The history, he's been there for over 10 years, and he's my go-to for any type of questions like this. Because with my role and capacity, it's just not on my plate. That part of it, the fuel modification part of it, is to help mostly to get all of us prepared and ensure that we are. But to do ongoing maintenance efforts in terms of weed abatement and fuel modification, we have a good crew. And he works directly with the assigned full-time Yorba Linda Orange County Fire Authority. I don't know his rank. His name is Nick. That works with him.
Starts with a P. I'll look it up while I'm sitting here.
Isn't he coming to speak to you guys?
No, Eric is coming instead.
Okay.
I'm looking it up.
But we do have reps for that. It's just not me, unfortunately, at this time.
Pavarov.
Here you go.
Yeah. So we do have another question in the chat. It says, I understand the proposed exit routes, but what is being done by the city or the sheriffs to keep outsiders from trying to come into the city, which causes congestion? And the note is that in 2008, this was a big issue.
Maybe you can broaden, whoever asked that question can give me a little more context. What do you mean?
Yeah, Michael, do you want to do that? Is Michael still on the line?
Sure.
Oh, there you are. Yep.
Sure. I'm sorry, but I've got the flu, so I'm not looking very good right now. But hopefully you can get through my voice here.
No worries.
I know that back in 2008, we lived here, and we were having problems getting into our track because of all the people that were coming in. They were coming up Weir Canyon. My daughter lived out east, and she lives on Gypsum Canyon. And there was a lot of people coming into and basically just congesting the exit routes out. So I was wondering, is there anything that's being planned that would maybe close down Gypsum Canyon from anybody coming north into Yorba Linda, but have basically a four-way out? Same would be Weir Canyon, possibly Imperial.
No, it's a very good question. I'm still don't really understand who would those people be coming up to congest unless they're trying to get home. But that being said, is the traffic management is handled strictly by the Orange County Sheriff's Department. They're legally responsible for traffic management, and their plan and even drills suggest that their full intention is to set up roadblocks to only allow public safety, fire department engine in and residents out. But the roadblocks will be manned, is my understanding, because there's always anomalies and exceptions, right? The one resident who has to get up the hill to get a family member, that type of thing. And so that's the Orange County Sheriff's evacuation procedure, and they'll be dealing with those manned roadblocks. And those roadblocks show up on watch duty too, so you can know as you're trying to get back if those have been closed or not. Also part of our public information communications efforts as well. And specifically to unclog arteries, they bring the force and they bear the force of the whole department, Orange County Sheriff, that is, to do that. That's their primary goal in the initial attack, is to clear those arteries for a fire department going up and residents coming down. But specifically, and that's why I invite the Sheriff's Department to speak at our symposium every year, those specific questions can be handled by our Yorba Linda Police Services folks from the Orange County Sheriff's Department. We've got a really close relationship. I see that the chief, Captain Wigington, every week at our department head meeting, and I know they're all over it. So I'd have to review for more specific information on what exactly they do. I'd have to review to the Orange County Sheriff's Department.
And we do have them scheduled to speak as well.
Cool. You know who that is going to come speak?
I don't remember.
You don't change your screen, so fine. But no, good resource. And I would just table that question for them.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yep. And if you need that contact earlier or more soon, I can certainly put you into contact with those folks.
Great. Thank you so much. We're pretty much out of time, but okay, Claire.
Okay, I'll be real quick. With regard to the Hidden Hills, they only have one exit. We have actually footage from an MWD camera when we were fighting the project that showed a policeman going up to try to get the gate open, and it didn't work. He couldn't get it open, and it was a really good thing he didn't, because there was a flashover from the fire, and anybody on that road would have died on that dirt road around the water reservoir. So it's a problem.
Yeah, let me speak to that really quick. Is that the one off of Glencrest? Is that the gate off of Glencrest?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Greencrest, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, there was some the last winter rains we just had, about not just recently, but about 6 months ago, even damaged that road even more. That is not a fire exit route at all, not acknowledged by the county fire department, not acknowledged by the city. The reason is because it's not a maintained road. We kind of they're arguing about who's going to maintain it. There's radio equipment up there. There's a water tank up there. It's MWD, 60-year-old, 70-year-old site up there with a pump. You can hear it pumping, but a very rickety road. Now, what happened is back in my understanding, I should say, don't hold me to this, but the developers, once we started developing up into the hills, the developer would love to say, oh, it's an emergency fire exit, just to get their development signed off on. But it never intended to be that way, and it's certainly not used that way today. So don't count on that being an evacuation route at all. And I've heralded this because it's so important that we can't justify or even recommend a use of that little road up there with no guardrails. It was never meant to be used. The only people you see up there is maintenance technicians. They're either working on their radio antennas, or they're the Metropolitan Water District folks dealing with the pump station. So yeah, that's a dangerous site up there. I've been up there personally. I used to help Anaheim. Long story short, the volunteer radio folks in Anaheim they still have a radio repeater up in that little cement room. So I've been up there every year with that group, very very carefully, and help weed eater around that as our part to say thank you to be able to use that tower. So not recommended and not official in terms of a fire exit.
I'll add to that because I was the one that did the Public Records Act request on that development when we were researching Esperanza Hills. So I'm relieved to hear that you're not recommending it as an exit, because it's not a good one. But it is actually recorded in the track maps as the emergency exit, which was approved by the city and the county.
Oh, I'm sure. And the developer probably slipped that in to suggest, hey, look, there's been developers that, have claimed 16 fire hydrants. And you go up there, unless you count them personally, there's not 16 fire hydrants. And I'm speaking only down here where I live in Tribuco Canyon. It's amazing what developers will say or do to get their plans approved to develop, put condos in or whatever they're doing. So just be cautious. But those are great questions. Yeah. People like me at the city can always help steer you to the most accurate information.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time, Chris. I know Paul has taken extensive notes and will be posting this to YouTube so that folks that weren't able to participate in the meeting can. And we'll include your slides, if you're okay with it, as a link in the meeting minutes, and your email as well, so that folks can follow up with you in the future.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thanks for the invite. Always available, like I said. And thanks for allowing me to do this from home. I don't mind doing a 7:00 p.m. meeting, but it was nice that I could do it from my laptop at home. So that's why you don't see an office background behind me. I'm outside at the time.
I think we heard some frogs in the background.
Frogs and coyotes. Yeah. In fact, I'll leave you with this. My directly next door neighbor 3 nights ago had a mountain lion on their camera on their chicken coop. So
wow,
I'm amongst the critters. So I'm looking around. But thank you guys for the invite, and again, I'm always available.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Take care.